I want to talk to you about, there's been a lot of talk about the Niners possibly acquiring a big defensive end. Now, we've heard names like Myles Garrett. We've heard names like Max Crosby. We've even heard names like Joey Bosa. Now, all of these are, in my opinion, are still they're just imaginary dreams. Like, we don't know if they can actually pull this off. I would imagine with Myles Garrett, it's going to be a pretty fat bidding war for his services. But let's start with that first scenario. Okay. Let's start with scenario A, which is Myles Garrett. How realistic do you think this scenario is, the Niners acquiring a guy like Myles Garrett for, let's say, the number 11 pick or a package of picks? And you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I'll set it like a 5% chance. I'm a probability guy. I like to say likely, most likely, in percentages. So I'll put that as 5%. Not that it's totally impossible. It's just, I think it's more so on the side of the Browns. Like, how would that work on their end? Like, they would have to believe probably they're going to, I think, get dinged on his last contract. And then also, if you're the 49ers, how are you going to also fit his extension? And if you're the 49ers, we already have Bosa. We already have our lead dog juggernaut as a pass rusher. You know, you're not a super team where you don't have the luxury where you can be like, we have two juggernauts. Because as soon as you acquire Myles Garrett, he becomes your number one. And Bosa's number two, which is dope to have. But it's like, all right, now what do we do with the rest of our defensive line? What do we do with linebacker that looks razor thin? What do we do with safety? You know, offensive line is not as bad as people say, but we could use a boost there. So what are we doing to allocate these sources on these one guys? So I think in terms of acquiring him, yeah, it's going to take the 11th pick, but it's going to take more than that. You're probably going to have to look at it maybe like a semi-Trey Lance situation where you're giving up 2 first-rounders, right? But if you're the Browns, it's like, okay, 11th pick is cool, but next year, wait, you're the 49ers. You're probably going to be picking high up in the 20s, especially if we give you Garrett. Like no, like would you trade him to the 49ers if you're the Browns? Number one, okay, NFC makes sense. Then what else? What else is there to give? You know, you don't have a player for you to give me. We don't want Deebo Samuel. Why would you want Deebo Samuel for Myles Garrett in the first round pick? If anything, that diminishes the first round pick you just give him. So I'd say like no more than 5% chance of the 49ers, because that's not, you already have your lead dog. You need someone more like complimentary or more just more supporting cast to become a collective strong unit again.
Well, and then there was this, obviously this is just a fictional trade proposal. But to me, like, I would do this trade, but to me, this is still, it's very fictional because it would be more than this, I would think.
Yeah.
Which is, we get Myles Garrett, the Browns get number 11 pick, this year's number 99 pick, and next year's second round pick. I don't think that's enough.
Hell no.
I really don't. Even if you threw in Deebo Samuel, they'd be like, oh, you can keep him. We don't really want that guy.
No, if you threw in Deebo Samuel, they'd ask for another pick just out of offense a little bit, because it's like, what is he going to do in that team?
I've heard somebody else say, oh, well, why don't we offer them Leonard Floyd so they have a defensive end? They don't want Leonard Floyd. They'd be like, that's great. I mean, thanks. You know, it's like, do you want gravy on your mashed potatoes too? Like, I mean, come on. So, look, if this was the real scenario and this is what they wanted, then I mean, I would say yes all day. I'd be like, all day. I'd be like, let's go. Let's do it. This would be the kind of trade proposal that would go through if, let's say, like Nico Harrison was the general manager of the Niners. He'd be like, hey, let's do it, and I won't tell anyone else about it. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man. But I think this would be, if that was a real scenario, then yes. I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd be like, yes. But if you look at his numbers, though, I mean, the guy is a monster. I mean, if there's one player that demands a big return to get his services, it's Myles Garrett. I mean, the guy, looking at his sack totals, my God, the last 5 years, 14, 16, 16, 12, 10, 13 and a half. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's a monster when it comes to his overall sack numbers, and he's a huge difference maker. But like you were saying, if we were to get him, he would essentially kind of diminish what we can do on the other end of reinforcing the defensive line, reinforcing our linebacking core, trying to find that third corner to complement Renato Green and Demo Lenore. So I think he would definitely leave us with a much slimmer team, not as deep as we want it to be.
And then think about it. If you're the 49ers, what has been like, what was your downfall, at least in that last Super Bowl run? Is you guys were a little too top heavy. And the time for you guys to finally start getting like more even keeled, more leveled out. Now you're pretty much going to, while he would in a sense make you more, obviously more threatening, more lethal, But there's going to come a point where it's like, okay, there's going to be probably stretches of the game where the pass rush is still not getting there, despite us having Garrett and Bosa, and all of a sudden it's like, why? Oh yeah, we don't have a linebacker outside of Fred Warner. Oh yeah, we don't have our third corner, or maybe Ronaldo Green isn't panning out like we want. Now we only have one corner. There's still, it's just I get the sexiness. It makes sense, especially with those picks, because you're not really giving up much, especially if you're the 49ers. You know, you're probably you're one of the worst teams to pick it in the first round. So if you're saying like, oh, 11th pick for Myles Garrett, I'd do that in a heartbeat. But that's just funny. I keep seeing that 33rd team making these ridiculous hypotheticals, and it's like, are these guys okay? Like, who's making these trades up? Is this a 49ers fans running that account? Because there's no way in hell like the Browns would ever accept that.
Yeah, they'd want more than that. There's no way. Now, if you go to scenario B, which is another great player, which is Max Crosby. Now, look, we all know that the Raiders don't like to trade or do any kind of business with San Francisco, right? But now they're in Vegas, and you got Tom Brady who's there, who's overseeing a lot of what's going to be going on. I mean, I'm sorry, but if Tom Brady is telling you, hey, we need to do this, it's kind of hard to tell him, like, well, what the fuck do you know? He's the GOAT. You'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go. So looking at it from that perspective, to me, it would benefit the Raiders to move on from Max Crosby and get a plethora of picks back to rebuild your franchise, because you're essentially starting over. Now, they did hire Pete Carroll, but if there's anyone who's all about getting young guys and motivating them, it's Pete Carroll. So imagine if they made this trade and they were able to acquire Max Crosby. Do you think this would be a better option than Myles Garrett, or do you think we'd be in the same exact boat when it comes to getting either one of these two guys?
I think it would be a little easier to get, but it's not too far off the Myles Garrett thing. Whereas Crosby, this time you'd get, okay, instead of you getting Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett is better than Nick Bosa. I know that's probably not consensus among a lot of 49ers fans, but he's better. I'd probably argue say way better. Crosby, he's not too far off of Bosa, but Bosa is better, and that would be great. You know, it wouldn't be as much demanding on the salary cap, whatever extension you would give him. Because you got to remember that all these players, the reason why they're being put in these hypotheticals, despite not being linked in many rumors, everything's hypothetical speculation. That's NFL offseason for you. The reason why they're being linked to these rumors is obviously Garrett Cressida trade. But Crosby, he's going to be due for extension. And like you said, the Raiders need that reset. And it's actually funny that you mentioned that, like, oh, yeah, like they haven't done deals with the 49ers in the past. Khalil Mack, they offered a better deal to the Raiders for Khalil Mack than they did the Bears, and they said no, because it was the 49ers. I think, like you said, if Tom Brady's there, Tom Brady's pretty much calling the shots there for, I think, a good majority of the thing. He's like the silent partner. That's why he gets to do both now. So if things go wrong, I didn't have a say in it. If things go right, now he's going to take credit. It's beautiful. It's like something I've seen on the Peaky Blinders, my favorite show, where you just have like your underlings take the brunt of it, and then if the good happens, you're the genius.
Yeah, so exactly right.
I think I wouldn't be surprised now. That's going to be more. They're going to be more trade partners now, especially because there's no rivalry there anymore. They've been in Vegas for like 5 years now. But I digress. So yeah, I think that would be more of a plausible option than a Myles Garrett for sure. It's just still kind of not. It's just kind of still in the same realm of like, yeah, that's still going to be a costly one. I get why that. It's like you said, why would the Raiders trade him? Because they need a reset. Well, if you need a reset, you need a haul of picks, right? And the 49ers going to give a haul of picks again. It's like it's about like trying to maybe you'd salvage more. Maybe you wouldn't have to give an extra pick or two, and maybe one of them will be less of a weighted pick. But you're still looking at pick 11 and all these other, Look, pick 11, no matter what's going to be the one that gets you as the conversation starter for these guys, then you're okay. It's the stacking of packaging of all these other ones that's maybe it's like, like we really need more. Like we can't just keep going top heavy. I get it. Again, maybe if you hit on a couple more of these players the last couple of years or few years, then sure, you could go balls to the wall, just straight send it, go half court shot, and just we could. But the thing is, you haven't. And you don't really have the luxury to play fantasy football, Madden team salary cap here. So I wouldn't, if they went for it, I wouldn't be against it. I just don't see it being a reality, especially from a Raiders perspective.
We're talking with Jose Sanchez, writer for SI, covers the Niners for SI. We got one more scenario. In fact, before I go to the last scenario, I have a mock trade I want to show you as well. This is via SF Niners. And this is it right here. Yeah. This is Max Crosby and a 2025 second round pick, which I was like, whoa, you're trying to get a pick back? For Deebo Samuel, the number 11 pick, this year's fourth round pick, and a 2026 fourth round pick. Do you think this trade is more realistic?
Hell no, no, no. I got love for Brad. He's a good. I've always got respect for him, but this is a
Right.
ridiculous trade. And here's the thing: I used to cover the Raiders before 49ers, and all the people who I still follow on the Raiders side think this is a completely incompetent trade. They're laughing at it. They're like, why would we give a second round pick? Who the hell wants Deebo Samuel? So it's like, it's funny. It's like it's all about perspective, right? When you start dabbling in other fan bases, you start seeing like, oh wow, it's like they think it's ridiculous. Niner fans, it's like, of course, Niner fans would love this. I would love this for the 49ers. I would hit the button to say yes, trade. I would drive Deebo to this airport my damn self. But this trade is not realistic at all. I would love to give the first round pick, sure. Give the fourth, because fourths are nothing in this case. If you're throwing in day 3 picks, who cares? Those are just tossaways. But yeah, I think the reason why you're getting a second round pick is because the Niners are eating dead cap already from Deebo. But if I'm the Raiders, I'm like, so how is that our problem? That's your fault, you know. So I mean, and plus the Raiders would probably have to extend Deebo, and you know, and you alluded to a few minutes ago. If you're the Raiders, you want to get younger. How are you getting younger by going with Deebo, who's not gonna really be a. I mean, maybe he can find a role in Chip Kelly's offense because Chip Kelly has that random creativity, I guess, that he can play in. But I think this is pretty outlandish, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know what or how much value Debo really has. The way that his contract
higher than
is,
5th round pick, man. I don't know how you get more than a 5th round pick for him.
well, I mean, the way Debo's contract is kind of put together, it's a no-win situation for San Francisco. If they trade him, they still end up eating hella money. If they release him, that they actually benefit the most about releasing him.
Yeah, they do.
And they obviously, his agent, they planned this, and the Niners fell for it. And maybe this was the catch all along, was that, hey, I'll sign the extension if you guys agree to these terms. And they were just like, fuck it, let's do it. But I mean, he's really in the driver's seat at this point. More than likely, he's going to get released as opposed June 1st. And I think that's going to save them, what, like $10 million? And then
it's going to save them more, and it's going to spread the hits out for like 2 years. So
yeah,
it's pretty much the same situation they were with Eric Armstead last year. It's like,
yeah.
why are you guys? I remember when they extended Debo back in September, right before the season started. It's like, what? Why? So that pretty much would indicate, usually when you restructure players, right, that usually indicates like, oh, he's stuck for at least another year, because if you cut him, you're going to be dead money. But no, it's like, once I saw that, it's like, no, the 49ers have shown they will cut you if you are not a worthy player, like they did Eric Armstead. So I just didn't understand that. These guys, like, they're great at making contracts, like structuring contracts, but when it comes to these moves, they're just like, they just kind of lose that. They just have no foresight. They don't see anything past, like, you know, they don't see the forest for the trees. They only see in the moment.
Yeah. Well, and then, you know, looking at Max Crosby's numbers real quick. I mean, last year he had 7.5 sacks. He only played in 12 games. Year before that, in 2023, he played 17 games. He had 14.5 sacks. In 2022, he played in 17 games, had 12.5 sacks. So, I mean, the guy is really, really good.
Really good.
Got a lot of talent. But obviously, out of the guys that we've talked about, I think Myles Garrett is like the, you know, he's at the top of his game. And he's the biggest, baddest one out there. I mean, if you got him alongside Nick Bosa, that's going to be pretty scary. Let's hope we can run the ball up the middle, and because the Niners maybe couldn't sign anybody else. Who knows? But we'll go to one last scenario. And to me, I think this is a more realistic scenario, and that's Joey Bosa. And the reason why is because we know that Joey Bosa may be a cap casualty coming up, and maybe one of those post-June 1st cuts. So if they cut him to save salary cap and he becomes a free agent, I think there's a chance that he may want to come over to San Francisco to play with his brother Nick Bosa. And I think if he does, he'd probably do it for hopefully a 1 to 2 year deal. I wouldn't sign this guy to anything more than that. He's been injury plagued his entire career. But what do you think about the idea of Joey Bosa possibly coming to the 49ers?
Yeah, I love it. You don't give up draft picks. It wouldn't cost you too much. It'll probably, you know, have like a good floor of like, okay, it's kind of costly, but maybe you also incentive laden it a little bit, you know, in terms of not by production, but just availability. Yeah, I wouldn't mind it at all, because you need, ultimately, how I see it, the 49ers don't need someone to be their new Batman. They need that second Robin, you know, like that 2019 Nick Bosa, D Ford complimentary. They need that second guy. And they thought Leonard Floyd can be that. And Floyd was actually pretty decent for the 49ers, especially, which is funny, especially once Bosa went out. He turned up his pressures and sacks rate, which is cool. So, but look, Floyd is pretty much not going to be that guy that gives you more than 5 impactful snaps a game. You need someone that does a little more and probably even helps in the run game.
Yeah.
And that's what maybe Joey can kind of, maybe they wouldn't do that with Joey because they want to maybe reserve him for more like passing downs, especially at his age.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like it because you wouldn't give up picks. And honestly, like back in New Orleans when I was there, I was talking to a buddy of mine who covers the Chargers, and he was leaning towards like, I think they're going to cut Bosa. But ultimately, he was a little like, it was a little questionable. Wasn't sure what they're going to do there. But he thinks they would cut Bosa because he believes strongly the Chargers will want to re-sign Khalil Mack. Like, and one thing about Khalil Mack, I think that what he told them is that Khalil Mack will only want to sign with the Chargers and no one else. If he's going to retire, come back to the Chargers, which makes sense, right?
At his age, yeah. He's like, I don't want to go somewhere else. I don't want him to start over again and, just reestablish myself. Fuck that.
And the Chargers got a lot of salary cap space. And so if you release Bosa, then you get more space. And then it's like, hey, we can just pretty much swing this money to Khalil, and at least this guy's available and he's still pretty impactful and he's probably a bigger leader than Joey would be. And then if you're 49ers, all right, cool. Here, Joey, here's 2 for 24. We'll guarantee 16 of it or something like that. That's not bad. Freak it. Just do it. Just see what happens. I would love that a lot because you pretty much, and then you could still add more players, someone complimentary in the free agency, and then you could still keep going for your young guys. So I think this is cool. It's kind of it would be a little bit of a not a total low risk, but it'd be somewhat low risk signing Joey Bosa because again, it's always the availability, right? But I would love it for sure. That's more of the realm of realistic, like you said, but also like it just makes sense financially and just resource wise.
No, it really does because the fact that look, he would be a free agent. You could sign him for, wherever you can negotiate for. Let's say it is, 2 years, 16 million. He'd probably do that. And, however, I forgot exactly what you said, but something similar to that, a 2-year deal. And if a bunch of it's guaranteed, I think he would do it because we know that he's been hit by the injury bug more often than not. I mean, last season he played in 14 games. And then in 2023, he played 9. 2022 played in 5 games. But when he's healthy, he played 16 games in 21 and he had 10.5 sacks. Granted, that was a while ago. It's 5 years ago. But we know that he has the potential. And I think that if you added someone like a Joey Bosa, then you could put him in there with Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa. So you have a 3-headed monster that you can rotate in and out. So you always got at least 1 to 2 pass rushers on the field at all times. Now, how good is he against the run? I don't know. I didn't check that stat, but I think he's not that great. He's more of a pass rusher. So I think still it's a more realistic option because he'd be a free agent, and it gives you the flexibility to still draft who you want to draft with that number 11 pick and moving on through the rest of the draft because we know that they badly need help. The Niners badly need help on both the offensive and defensive lines. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more of this content, then check out some of these recommended videos right here on your screen. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by going to my website, which is nicotina.net, and there are memberships available under DreArea Sports.